Hey, what's up everybody? It's Mike B with Bombero Bus, and today I'm going to be putting a CSP bell crank linkage into the 1965 Bug. If you thought I was going to say the bus, I don't blame you, and I probably will, because a spoiler alert is that bell crank linkage turned out to be one of those eureka moments that I wish I had known about sooner. But hey, better late than never. So I'm talking from the future where I've already installed it and driven it. But for the sake of this video, let's get to the installation and I'll tell you about the benefits at the end. And so the real reason I'm putting the bell crank linkage on here is because it's for the 1800 build that I'm doing right now. If you've been watching that series, the problem is parts for that build are coming in pretty slow, especially the heads. So these came in from CSP really quickly, and I try to dub daily, which means I'm too impatient to wait and put these on the 1800. I want to try it on here just because when you're running the smaller carburetors like these 34s, I just feel like all this linkage is a distraction from the carburetors themselves. You can see the bracket is almost as big as the carburetor. It's all that your eye is drawn to. And I'd like to clean up that look and just have the two carburetors sitting on either side of the fan shroud. So with all that being said, I'm gonna get to work on putting this bell crank linkage in, and I hope it works well. I saw McDaniel's Motorworks put it in, and I asked him, you know, hey man, quite frankly, do I want that? And he answered, quite frankly, yes, you do. So I'm going to give it a go. So the first step is going to be getting this linkage off of here. And that means one thing that comes to mind with this installation is if I remove these brackets, you know, where will my return springs go? Because you can see on this setup, your return spring actually hooks to this bracket. So I went ahead and ordered this return spring that you can get when you order from CSP, and it goes underneath here, and hopefully it's strong enough to replace these two return springs. And if not, you know, we'll go from there. I'm not going to bore you with the removing of this linkage. It's pretty simple, and I'm going to go ahead and get all that off, and we'll be right back. Okay, there it is with the linkage taken off, and you know, I already see it's a much cleaner look. And you know, not that it was horrible before, but I just want to try this change. But so the first thing I'm going to do is get this bell crank put on there, but I'd like to take a second just to remark on how good and quality this feels in my hand. But they feel like some pretty high quality bearings in there. The material feels good. You got the, you know, aesthetic laser etching there, and it just feels like a good piece in my hand. So where it's going to go is right here, and I have to take that nut off because this is where it's going to stand, and it'll make more sense once it's installed, and I'll let you take a look at it. But before I get that stand on there, I want to install this return spring. Like I said, this is an option. Don't forget to order it if you don't have any other way of using a return spring on your setup. And it's going to go underneath here, and I'll show you how it fits when I get it on. First, I got to get this nut off and get this spring installed in the base of it, and that's going to be my return spring. Best I can tell, here's how this is going to go on. It just sits here. It's got a little hooked end that's going to hook onto your base like that, and there you go. So there's the helper spring once it's installed. You can see it's got a little bend that curves around that lip there. And one thing, it definitely feels like just a helper. I don't know if that would be enough to return the spring fully on its own, so I'm feeling like we're still going to have to figure out something with our springs, but at least we got that bit of assistance on there. So there's a first glance of what it's going to look like on there. You can see where the base of it goes. It goes to this stud that's on your case. Now you can see I'm going to have to back that stud out. It's not a big deal, just an extra step because I don't have enough thread on there for the nut to fit on it. So while I'm here, if you can see, if it'll focus, that adjustment screw right there, I had to mess with that. And let me see if it'll show you what it's doing. See it right there? And that's what it's gonna do in order to keep this shaft straight up and down, because look what happens when you turn it. You wanna make sure you're not gonna be hitting your backing plate there. And that's not such a big deal. But for now, I gotta get this stud backed out so I can grab it with a nut. Okay, that should be backed out enough. I just used the old double nut method. You can see that gap there. That should give me enough thread to grab it now. All right, I think we should be good to go on that. And that adjuster nut is kind of where I want it. You could see where some of the issues would be. Watch this arm as it swings. You want to make sure it's going to clear the backing plate right there. And then watch down here. You could see that being a problem with hitting the backing plate or that bolt right there. So I'll fast forward a bit and show you that that was a problem for me. It's the only problem I've had with this whole installation. So once I put the rod on, that ball does not hit the backing plate, but the screw that holds the backing plate on there, it did hit it, but barely. So basically I customized the screw. I just haven't put it back in yet, but I shaved it down a little bit so that this ball won't hit it. I don't know why that happened. It could be that this is not the intended backing plate for this engine. It's the recessed one that comes with the generator, but for some reason, whenever I've switched to these Scat fan shrouds, it's required that backing plate to make these two pulleys line up. So I don't know if that has what's to do with going on down there. It could be something even more simpler, but the point is, just by, you know, not having that screw in there, it's not hitting, and it was enough for me to take it on a test run. In the beginning, I thought this piece here would come off, but it doesn't. This linkage set allows you to keep that on there, and so you have a place to hook your spring. And all I did was put the screw back in the throttle body and attach my spring to that. Getting this linkage synchronized was really easy. So what I did was, first I put this bar on. I made the connection here, and I made the connection there. And then I started adjusting. You loosen up these jam nuts here, and you started. What it did when I first put it on was it held this throttle open just a little bit. So you loosen up these jam nuts and you start adjusting your rod, and you'll see the idle come in, and then as soon as it makes contact there, you stop and you lock up your jam nuts. That side is done. So then I attached this one. No, that one. And then I put this one on the rod, and I just started turning it until it lined up with the hole that's on this arm. Put it in there and put the nut on the back, tightened up that jam nut, and it's easy. You have the Snell gauge for, you know, syncing them, but the point is that this one was a lot more easier to synchronize with those two rods. So I'll fire it up and let you hear the crispness of that throttle response. So now I'll talk about the pros, and basically it's throttle response. It is crisp, and I had to drive with a lighter foot now, or else you'll jerk yourself around trying to drive it. But It's pretty easy to get used to, and I prefer it because it was just a blast to drive. So the bigger advantage for me is that hex bar linkage is out of the way. And the reason, and now I realize how sluggish that setup was. You know, there were too many changes of direction. Each time you change direction, I feel like you lose some energy. So you add all those up into one system, and you're gonna have a more sluggish, you know, hex bar system. But so far, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love the way what I got out of it, and as far as performance, it added performance to this car. So there you go. I think I'll wrap it up, and don't forget that this is temporary because parts of this are going to get pulled off and used on the 1800 build. We're doing a series on that if you want to check it out. So thanks for hanging out with me, and if this video helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe. If not, leave a comment and tell me what you think. Either way, I'll see you on the next one.